Thank you all for coming. Welcome. Good morning. My name's Jim Berger. I'm a partner in the law firm Thompson Coburn from the city where nothing happens, Washington, D.C. I'm glad to be out here. Our topic today is a mouthful: indie TV, OTT, and streaming, the gateway to the new Hollywood of content, to phones, tablets, TV, and phone. How did I get that 3 times? Well, more equipment. And basically, it's where the hell are we going with all this stuff? We've done this panel a number of years. It's a lot of fun. I expect a lot of audience questions. I got a whole sheet of questions, but I hope I don't get to ask them all because I like the audience to participate. But before we do that, let me introduce the speakers. You've got their extensive bios. This is really, oh good, Jim, turn it on. They have extensive bios. This is really a very experienced panel. I could take most of our time just describing the accomplishments of the panel, but instead I'm just going to, in order, your right, my left, Kim Hurwitz, Chief Content Officer, FOTV Media Networks. Does that change from the last time, Kim?
Well, that's the parent company, because we own several.
I liked when you said Film On. And next to her is Randa Minkara, Chief Operating Officer of Transform. Jim Clements, who's Director of Sales and Business Development for the West Coast at New Lion. Frank Giandamo, I love Frank's name. President and Chief Creative Officer, that's a good title too, Fun Little Movies. Keith Valerie, who's the CEO of Plex. Robert Maglin, Chief Programming Officer of Pluto TV. Basically what we're going to do first is have each of the panelists take a few minutes, 5 to 8 minutes, however long they want, not too long, to talk about themselves and more about their company, and then where are we going? What make sense of this for everybody, because I don't understand. Kim, do you want to lead us off?
Sure. Good morning. My parent company is FOTV Media Networks. We are a company that puts video first on every consumer touch that we can. So we own Film On, which is a global streaming platform, both free and SVOD. We also have Cinema Now, which is a transactional pay-per-view digital service. We also own a company called OV Guide, which does a lot of stuff, sending traffic to places like Hulu and Netflix and HBO and Amazon. They are also leaders in building apps, or they call them channels, on Roku. They own or operate 22 channels there. A couple of them are one of the better performing ones, all in the AVOD, free ad-supported space. We also own a company called Hologram USA. We are the North American patent rights holders for that particular technology. We work a lot with Jimmy Kimmel and Country Music Awards and big brands. And there's a lot of exciting things going on in that space. So we touch the customer in very different ways. We have a very interesting and brilliant CEO who leads the way and has gotten a lot of press for us over the years on various things that he does. He's a disruptor. So everyone that works there is kind of a disruptor. I've always been in advanced products, whether it's been on the traditional side or the indie space. But I worked for many years at DirecTV as head of pay-per-view and advanced products, and in cable for many years before that. And so
where are we going?
Nutshell. Well, all I know is we're going there faster than ever. So it's speeding up, and I know one of the questions later on talks about 5G, and I'm very excited about that. I think that's going to change a lot of things, and on a real global scale. So I think it's exciting, and we'll talk more.
Hi, I'm co-founder and COO of a startup in Seattle. It's a big data and analytics company, and what we do in the media space in particular is we optimize for audience. So we add metadata to content, video content on a second-by-second, frame-by-frame basis, and we pull in all that information, and we add third-party. We add a great deal of information to give you kind of an idea of what that really means. We can inform program scheduling, where's the best place to put this show optimally. We also do a brand awareness index that can help content creators understand, given the trends in the marketplace, is the show going to be a hit? What do we think? We can predict ratings very, very accurately, and we just help inform. So think of it as optimizing viewership and with a with a look at how do we grow these cohorts, where do we find this audience. It's also a combination of OTT and linear viewing together. So you really have an understanding of the impact of the audience and the best place and way to reach them, your audience segments and cohorts. So that's what this company does. It's about 3 years old. My background before that was all on the media side directly. I worked for a television station group. We had about 20 television stations, and I ran revenue and programming and retransmission consent negotiations, which is how I met Jim, in part. And we developed an app for viewing television on your phone without using bandwidth. We collaborated with companies that had done this work in Europe, and then we created it for the United States. A little bit defunct now. There are others that took that over. And then I went to this startup. So where do I think we're going? I do agree we're going really quickly. Where it is we are going is happening faster and faster. I do think that there will be disintermediation as far as some of the things we said on this panel in the past, where we felt that broadcast local stations were not going to be as critical. I think that the money that comes back to the networks from these stations has become interesting and important, and until that changes, I don't think there'll be a change there. But what I do see a big change is content creators are very interested in controlling their destinies, and that impacts companies like Comcast and Dish and Direct. And so I do see, my example of that for you would be HBO Go, where there's a lot of emphasis. They did their earnings call, and they spoke about the importance of how that app is going to change things for them. So that's what I see the shift in, and I think that's going to continue. Consumers are going to drive as they have, and that's not going to change.
Thank you, Randa. Jim?
Hi, thank you. If you can hear me. So I lead business development and sales for New Lion. It's not New Line. Most people haven't heard of us. We're essentially the white label technology platform that enables content owners to deliver basically any type of content to any type of consumer on any connected device. We work with the NFL, the NBA, the UFC, globally. Here in the US, we work with the Big Ten Network, with Tennis Channel. We do live streaming and VOD for CCTV in China, for ITV in UK and Europe. We work with British Telecom. So we've got a pretty healthy roster of blue chip clients that some of them have legacy businesses like the NFL does, but they also are delivering over the top because they see that consumers want it and need it, and they can now monetize it. Where I see this all going, I mean, I think these guys have sort of touched on it. It's going quickly. I think the biggest difference is it used to be that it took a legacy media company with hundreds of millions of dollars to launch something viable, to launch a network. And today you can launch something viable with just several $1 million, which is still a lot of money, but it's leveled the playing field so much because the touch points are everywhere. So if you have enough content and you can market it in some meaningful way and get people to pay for it, you've got yourself a business. And so in some ways we enable that to a great degree.
Thank you. Frank?
Thanks, Jim. So continuing the fact that we are probably the most diverse panel here at Digital Hollywood in terms of careers, I have always created forward-thinking ventures in media. So in 2004, I was putting my short films that I had made for the web onto Sprint cell phones. It got me on the front page of the LA Times and a cover story in Forbes magazine, and now your 3-year-old can do it. So then I've moved into doing branded videos for companies like Intel, Walmart, Petco, Chevy, things like that. And then I've been in the education space as well, teaching at USC, UCLA, Chapman, Emerson, and now head of new media at Columbia College Hollywood. This is your cue to yell, guys.
We need the applause sign. Yeah.
And can you call up the website, virtualfilmschool.org?
Sure.
So 2 things I'm doing now is I'm developing the new media program there at Columbia College Hollywood. And in doing so, I've noticed that there is a disconnect in education because you guys who are here have to pay a lot of money to go to school and have to move to Los Angeles and pay Los Angeles housing rates. And this whole conference is about virtual reality. And so why not offer classes inside of virtual reality And then you can take it from China, or you can take it from the Philippines, or you can take it from anywhere in the world, and we can have the best film students in the world all gathering together inside of this virtual classroom. So that's what I'm launching now, virtualfilmschool.org. Thanks.
So you're not going to tell us where we're going?
Where we're going is downstairs to the funding panel.
Keith?
Great. Thanks for having me. I am the CEO of Plex. For those of you who don't know Plex, Plex is a streaming media app that allows people to organize their media libraries, recorded TV and movies, a growing number of online content, make it beautiful in one kind of beautiful window, and then stream it to all of your devices. We have millions of customers around the world now. We're typically in the top 10 most watched apps on most platforms, and very highly rated kind of user experience. And really, we were kind of born as a company, kind of born in this OTT era. So we're very much an over-the-top company. And I think it's in terms of where I think we're going, I agree. I think that there's been a lot of talk over the last few years about, hey, there was this massive disaggregation of content over time. It's got to start consolidating. Money's going to accelerate that. But certainly, what we've seen, and we talk to our content provider partners every week, and I don't think that's going to happen. I really think the disaggregation of content is going to continue. It's great for companies like us. We're relying on kind of the democratization of content and a level playing field that Over the Top provides. So obviously this topic is very near and dear to my heart. So
Thank you, Keith. Rob?
Thanks so much, James, for having me. I'm Robert Maglin, the Chief Programming Officer of Pluto TV. Pluto TV is the leading free internet television service in America with way more than 6 million unique monthly active users. We curate more than 100 linear channels. We also have a VOD offering that we're deploying. And we're really curating channels around viewers' interests, moods, and passions. We're available anywhere, anytime, on really any device. Just an extremely wide array of devices, both mobile, desktop, web, and connected living room. Amazon Fire, Roku, Hisense, Samsung, just to name a few. In terms of the future of television, I mean, it's a really exciting time. I mean, the internet has really provided for the third wave of video sharing. I mean, there was broadcast, there was cable. The internet is this third wave. And that wave is really bright for niche content. And that's because technology and AI and just local community activation and personalization are making the experience so incredible. At a much lower price point, you can deliver really, really niche interests. Just to give you some ideas, some of the channels on the Pluto TV platform include The Feed, which is a tech culture channel. You've seen channels like Tech TV or G4 in some capacity go away because the audience wasn't great enough. However, on a platform like Pluto TV, this is a real business. There's also a gaming culture channel called The Hive, which we launched, which and an Anime All Day channel. The Young Turks Network is a government slant news network that does quite well on the platform. We also recently launched John Steinberg's Cheddar, millennial news channel. So there's really a diversity of choices, and that's really what makes Pluto TV special. It's a combination of content from the full spectrum of video creators, from major studios to broadcast TV channels to cable network groups, to digital media brands, to publishers going bigger in the video space, and also independent distributors. So it's equal opportunity for everyone to participate. And it's just really fascinating and exciting and a great complement to what's out there in broadcast and cable and what SVOD offers. In terms of my background, just to give you kind of a quick overview, I'm a longtime cable executive with previously with Turner, Comcast, and NBC Universal. I was part of the executive team that launched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. For those of you that are fans, you're welcome. For everyone else,
can
I'm
blame
just going
you.
to offer my deepest condolences. At the same time, we also launched Chelsea Handler into one of the leading women in female comedy. Most of my roles were program strategy, acquisitions, and to a lesser extent, production.
Thank you, Rob. So, as usual, I'm going to turn things on its head. I think the title's somewhat misleading. Indie TV sort of makes you think it's over-the-air television. This is really about indie content, indie video. But let me start out by asking, and then I'll make another heretical suggestion. And I'll start with Kim, which is, what the heck is an indie content provider, TV? What is it? And I want to go down the line. If you just agree, say, pass it on, or if you have something to add. But starting with Kim.
I don't get the indie TV moniker, so you shouldn't have started with me. But because even the majors are going over the top and streaming.
You're
so.
stealing my thunder. That's what I was going to suggest. No, I was really going to suggest, there's this great cartoon where the dog is sitting in front of the computer and saying, nobody knows you're a dog on the internet. So I'm wondering, this panel so far has been great. I'm going to quit. Well, no, but, I'm ahead. But seriously, the disintermediation, disaggregation, all those terms mean these people, let's see if I can get to my next slide here. Whoops. I never can figure out how to advance fast on these things. So, one would say these guys probably aren't indies. But on the other hand, everybody, you've heard how relatively easy it is to get on the internet with your content. I mean, gone from 100 million to 1 million, maybe even less. So is everybody really an indie in a sense?
CBS is over the top.
My
Right.
opinion is kind of the way that the title reads is that indie TV is over the top streaming, right? That's kind of the way I view it. Don't look at it like the traditional definition of indie film versus a studio film. It's really, again, this kind of democratization of content where everybody's got a free shot at this. If you've got 10 viewers and some content and you can get someone to build yourself a Roku app, you're in the game. Now, I think the interesting thing about that is it actually makes a lot of bigger providers and a lot of the bigger players now have a lot of the challenges that you saw with indie providers in the past, where now they've got to figure out if they're app number 500 or 600 out of 5,000 apps, they've got to figure out how to get in front of audiences and how to engage with those audiences, which is, I think, the big, at least in our view at Plex, I think is the biggest challenge in this space, is that from a user experience perspective, how do you actually, with an almost infinite amount of content, how do you actually make that usable?
Yeah,
by
you're
people?
getting to my later questions.
Sorry.
This panel's
Ahead of myself,
great.
but I think that's
Like I said, I could just step away and let them run. But Frank,
Well, isn't it really just a spectrum? Because, on the one hand, A.J. Hart has a channel called Fractoid Films, and they make films on average about once a week, and that's a channel, right?
Right.
And it's on YouTube, and at some point it could rise to the level where it can get onto film on TV if they have enough content, right? And trust me, it's good. And so, they're at one end of the spectrum. And then, HBO started as an indie, and now they are the 800-pound gorilla, right? At
Right.
all the Academy Awards. And
Well-
they are a web app. If you think about it, right? They're
They're
more of a
definitely.
web app now than a cable TV
look
station.
at, and what about Netflix?
Right.
Netflix, exactly.
Started out as a channel on U.S. Postal Service.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it's really a continuum, and you just have to know where you sit and where you want to go up the scale.
That was my big mistake.
So-
As a lawyer, I've told people I gave a speech in New York and sat between Reed Hastings and the general counsel of TiVo, going, which one should I pitch? And I'm going, this guy's mailing DVDs, it's going nowhere. Sorry.
But Jim, I think the challenge changed. It used to be for indie stuff, it was really hard to get anyone to show your content. You couldn't get an audience because it just wasn't possible. Now it's about you can get, you can put it out there. Now the challenge is growing the audience. So it sort of changed. you can do it. You can put it out on the internet. You can hope to gather an audience and then hope to get it on film on.
Right,
So it's changed.
Is that?
Well, I like the
is-
pitch for
is-
film
Is that
on,
right?
but-
I mean, do you not want to, and this is to everybody, anyone can answer this, do you not want to establish your own channel and draw all the people to you, or do you want to get on somebody else's?
I think you want to be ubiquitous. I mean, that worked for Netflix. I mean, their advertising was everywhere. We want apps everywhere. And to some degree, it's still that way, because the hard part is, and it's just like music, if there are any musicians out there, it's cheaper than ever to make an album. But how do you get it out? Yeah, you can go to Mondo Tunes or CD Baby and distribute your stuff on iTunes and Spotify. But, how do you get people to tune in and listen? And it's like that on YouTube. Look, I have a global channel, but like, how do you get people to come in and now Facebook is going live, so that should be in the streaming. They're doing a lot of live stuff.
I should have put that in there. You're right.
I mean, who didn't watch the giraffe?
I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed now.
No, but I think it's also, how do you monetize it? Sure, anyone can
Right.
make content, but you could lose a lot of money if you're not monetizing it properly. So, do you want to be a standalone, or do you want to jump on somebody else's platform? Those are good questions. It depends on, can you monetize it by standing alone? Is that a better option? It's not one size fits all. So I think depends on your business, the type of content you have, who your audience is, and do you have an appetite for going it alone, or are you looking to essentially license your content like people have done for a long time and
Right.
put it on somebody else's platform?
So what are sort of the choices? Licensing it?
Well,
Get-
if
trying to
if I'm
get
a producer or
advertisers.
director,
Yeah.
I've created content.
Right.
I can license it to somebody. I can license it, put it on Pluto, and they're going to pay me something for that. And they're going to keep, either it's an ad share rev, or they're going to just pay me a flat fee, and they're going to keep the difference. Or I can monetize it myself. I can put it up on my own app, and I can charge people to watch it.
So there's all the above possibilities.
Most of our content partners would say both, right? So you take like a CNN, for
Yeah.
example, they're going to try and get certain types of content distributed on, in aggregation platforms, but then reserve some content back, in their own app where they can kind of create an immersive experience and help build their brand and create an engagement and an audience and a community around their content. I do think that's one of the big challenges with OTT. It's like, I got to find these ways to get into aggregation apps and get into that top 15, 20 apps or so that people can see my content and kind of know my brand. But then I want to be able to pull people into my app. I do think that's one of the awesome things about the app ecosystems and OTT in general, is that now content providers aren't relegated to just channel 28 on some EPG somewhere. You can build an awesome app that that really kind of speaks to your brand. That I know is not going away. There's been some people saying, oh, this is just a fad, apps will go away. Definitely not going. You talk to content providers, like that ability to create an immersive experience is really important. So my answer is both. I think not for everyone, but for a lot of content providers, you're going to have to kind of play both games.
We should ask how
Yeah.
many people here are content creators.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay,
That's a
so
lot.
that's our
That's
audience
fabulous.
today.
I have one other question though, but then you go, how many of you are millennials or Gen Z? Not a lot, but no, I'm glad you're here, and I hope you guys are going to ask some questions.
How many behave like millennials and Gen Z? To me, it's not just the hard,
Good point, Kim.
book-ended. It's behavioral.
Yeah, we're all Generation C, as Google says. We're all Generation
we're
content.
connected.
If you're in this room, you are Generation content,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Frank,
sleep
you
with
wanted
your
to add?
phone and don't ever go to the bathroom without it.
Right.
Oh, I'm embarrassed. You've been
Oh.
watching. Frank, did you want to add something to what Keith said?
Well, yeah, so I think the challenge, and these are the people who can help, really. The challenge is, for a content creator, is to create something that is true to your heart and true to your experience, and true to your psyche, right? That you can build, but that also can be matched with an audience and/or an advertiser. So we're seeing a lot of push towards branded content, right? That's kind of the big thing. But we're also seeing a lot of push towards content that is for a particular audience. And the people who are having a lot of times, the biggest struggles are the networks and the shows and things that are just trying to go after a general audience. Because what's a general audience these days, right?
Right.
So if you can find a way through what you guys are doing or through, what you guys are doing, find a way to create stuff that will have a pathway to an audience, pathway to an outlet, pathway to an advertiser, let's say, or an advertising category, then I think that's really what you need to do these days as a content creator.
Before I move on to a related but different topic, I was wondering if any of you had questions on this particular topic about your content, about getting it out. So you've got a great opportunity in this panel of asking questions. Yes?
So in a world where you can get most of your things for free on the internet, like through illegal terms or even sometimes to record things, what strategies are there to convince people to pay for your content? Is there any sort of...
Thank you. That's a good question. He made me take out one of my slides on that. So, Frank, you answer it first.
Oh, shit.
I wrote it down specifically for Clemens.
Okay.
All right,
Jim,
right
go
on.
for
That's
it.
the right guy.
You've
I
rescued
agree.
Frank.
Yeah.
I mean, look, for the most part, if you've got premium or professional level content, you're going to protect it in some fashion behind a paywall. There's a certain level, we offer through our platform a certain level of token-based security that protects the content. We work with studios, and we're supporting multi-DRM level security and even session-based watermarking. So there's lots of ways to protect content. Depends upon the type of content you have, what threats there are for it, and how you want to monetize it.
One thing you can do, anytime somebody does that in front of you, I literally walked out of a room. I said, I will not be in the same room with something you stole. I won't. And so I think that all of the people in the room that are content creators, just say no. And it's maybe it's small, but don't let them do it. Tell them why. Tell them that you're not going to be able to make a living, and make it personal, and maybe they'll listen.
But that does bring up a point with the aggregated thing and you being able to stream it onto every device. And say you have like 4 iPhones, 2 iPads, and like everything in your house. How do you know other people aren't borrowing your iPhone or borrowing it? So it's just like, how do you figure out who's watching what where, so that say HBO or whatever residuals can be paid to the actors and things like that. How do you clock that and keep everything in balance and check? Because if you're aggregating everything to every single thing on the planet, people are watching it for free all over the place. So how do you, there's a question.
I mean, I can say that on our platform, we can set a level of device concurrency. So you can only have 1 device or 2 devices playing a certain type of content at a certain time. So you can't share your password, your Netflix password, with all your friends and family, and everyone's watching at the same time. So if you're logged in using your Netflix password, no one else can log in and watch on another device at the same time. It's fairly simple enough to set those kind of concurrency rules.
That
Rob?
doesn't happen on Netflix though.
Our platform.
Well, it depends how they set it.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
platform can do that too. You can set 2 simultaneous streams, 5, whatever you want. But you're right, a lot of people.
I got back there.
Yeah, yeah.
Pluto
Rob?
TV is free by design. So it's ad supported. It's always free.
And it's always content that's not high level blockbuster kind of like stuff that you'd see on like ABC, NBC, CBS, or in films.
It's premium video from a wide array of sources
How are you getting that?
through deals, licensing deals.
And you're not paying any residuals out on any of the stuff that goes out on your.
The people that are the rights holders for the content that we license are paying out residuals.
Yeah, that's the way it generally works. Is
Yeah,
it's
so
the rights
Yeah.
holders,
The
not
rights
the,
holder does that.
Yeah, so
It's
I have
responsible.
a deal with Film On where I get a check from Film On for the content that I have on there.
Right. I pay like music license, that sort of stuff, but I don't pay specific player rights because that's
bundled in.
his
It's bundled in the
burden.
licensing price to you,
Yeah.
gentleman in the back there.
Yeah, I have content creators that I manage that, 5, 6 years ago, we took them over to YouTube, and now all these guys have surpassed a million subscribers in that space, and they're doing really well. But now they're ready for the next level. They're looking for either their own OTT solutions or partnering with an existing OTT solution that has dollars per se, to be able to help them with the existing content move to more plot-driven content or
So what is,
Well, there are MCN networks
Yeah.
like Studio 71 or Machinima or Awesomeness. I mean, a lot of them have been acquired by even larger entities, and they will often find you if you have enough subscribers. But I imagine that you could go directly to those people, and what they generally do is they'll come to places like maybe, I don't know about Pluto, but other platforms like ourselves, and maybe try and exact a license fee or whatever. Most of our stuff is free and ad supported also, though.
We're kind of in that space, so we have Complex, we have a relationship with Complex, we have a relationship with Fullscreen, we have a relationship with Broadband and those guys, but now it's like.
So they want to go beyond the MCN?
Beyond that, or, you know, like he said, if we're in two different places, so be it, but we want to be able to grow our own brand in our own space or partner with another existing, partner that does, I guess, ad-based stuff or help us in a subscription-based place to be able to grow with some subscribers in that place and be able to share some way in, some type of subscription-based.
Well, I mean, it's almost like, how do I get famous, or how do I get into show business? It's a very hard question to answer. So I think that they are right to knock on a lot of doors and, you know, look at other companies that you admire. And, you know, with the internet, there's so many tools out there to find people through LinkedIn or even press releases that come out on companies that you admire, and make noise about yourself on social media. And a lot of times the right opportunity will find you. But
there was one,
Yeah, it's about claiming your space, and you claim your space, and then you will be able to match that to an audience or to an advertiser, right? So if you have, for example, like with Studio 71, as you were talking about, they picked up something from Columbia because it was about mermaids, and that's a cool thing. There's an audience for that. But they also picked up another one of my student series, which is called the New Civil Rights Movement, which is about, the protest rallies that are happening, because they feel a resonance with that. And so they don't have a lot of views, they don't have a lot of episodes, but they just felt a resonance with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just about knocking on doors. There was a marijuana panel yesterday. There were 2 marijuana MCNs downstairs yesterday.
unfortunately, it was during the cocktail hour.
right
Well,
now,
yeah, we
at
had
the
to
same
pick.
time, I
Yeah.
thought that was
Yeah,
odd
let's-
planning too.
Well, I was going to say, but for someone who wants to go their own way, and that's what we help support, is we could create apps that could be available on devices that could house the content that you guys own or that your partners own, and you can monetize it any which way. You could sell subscription for it. If you have 1 million subscribers that are paying $1 a month, you're making $1 million a month. And you could also, it could be ad supported. There can be different levels of monetization. So there's lots of different ways to go. If you wanted to go, or they wanted to go their own ways, we could talk about how we would help support that. And we're not the only companies in this space, so I won't name the others.
Yes, you sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is really an enlightening panel. This is primarily for Robert and Kim, I guess, and maybe even more so for Robert, because I understand UTA is invested, or at least the head of it is invested in your company. Where do you see yourselves going in terms of creating the kind of exclusive content that eventually differentiated HBO and Showtime from just being acquisition of existing studio movies and content, and allowed them to really accelerate, and Netflix, of course, too, and grow? Is that a direction you see as viable, or is that where you're headed, or tell us about your plans in that arena?
Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways it's too early to comment on what the future will hold. Really what we're aspiring to be right now is literally the best that free TV can offer. Literally in every other country in the world, the idea of having to pay to watch ads doesn't exist. So right now, that's what we're focused on. Will there be opportunities to do more original programming and exclusive content? Absolutely, only in time.
But it could be an ad-supported model, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
been traditional television.
And
It's
we're
worked.
potentially open to that kind of stuff. We have licensed a few things, since we're a global platform, and frankly, the most of our viewers tend to be in Europe, because that's where it emanated. We have our technical teams in Odessa, Ukraine. We have a UK office as well as one out here. So, you know, we occasionally look at stuff, and yeah, I'm the case study of what HBO and Netflix and Hulu, Amazon, they really went to the next level by getting exclusive content. So, you know, we may go into that area. So,
You next, sir?
Yeah, how archaic is video pay-per-view as an option, and the new Amazon direct video program that I've seen? Does anybody know anything about those?
I don't. I mean, I heard of
Can
them.
you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, Vimeo has a pay-per-view option, and that seems like something that is a possibility for content creators to explore, and they pay a pretty good percentage back of the views. You still have to do your whole social media ads and everything like that. But there's that, and then there's the new Amazon direct video programming that I've seen, where a content creator can sign up with Amazon and get paid, similar kinds of things. So has anybody had any experience with either of those two possibilities?
I have not directly.
I know Vimeo Pay is a 90-10 ratio, but I don't know that they're even here at the conference.
I haven't seen any.
And I just don't know how you would possibly monetize by going onto video. Amazon sounds like a much better choice.
Okay.
He's been ahead.
Have you been ahead? All right.
Yeah.
We'll get to you in a moment. Gentleman in the back.
Yeah, so when you do deals or pickups or licensing, whatever you call it, when you acquire content, what are the characteristics of that content? Format, size of audience, any of that? And do you do any development of content, either for testing and optimization or for aligning with brands who may do the ad-supported part for the free services?
we do all sorts of license deals. That's the only way that we've been able to grow as fast as we have. I mean, I joined the company in late 2010, which is a really long time ago in this space. You know, my boss basically said, just go out there and just acquire anything you can, because so many people I'd call from my previous, you know, traditional media days would go, what are you doing again? You know, we don't know what our mobile strategy is yet. Things have really changed in the last year or so, but we had to be very agile, and so we would do license deals and ad revenue share deals, and like anyone who had digital content, you know, we would do deals with them. So very flexible. And in some ways it's still the same way. Like we have a pay package that's also available on Film On, but you pretty much have to be a linear cable network to be on that. We've tried pay-per-view events. We've done it both on traditional cable and otherwise. It's very hard. Someone used to head up pay-per-view at DirecTV. It's really hard to make pay-per-view money unless you're the UFC or a major boxing or WWE or a major Hollywood studio. Like, I mean, I remember trying to do a Rolling Stones concert. It's the Rolling Stones, and it was really hard to get people to pay $19 to see the Rolling Stones. And so I get a lot of artists that come to me, oh, let's do this, you know, pay-per-view thing. And I was just saying, it's going to cost you so much. You're better off finding a branded sponsor to underwrite it and just go out there and do it that way. Because I've seen a lot of success. And depending on what the brand is, we once did a talk show with Tommy Chong, and we had Weed Maps. They were our underwriter, and they paid for everything to make all the episodes, and they used it on their stuff. We run it on our TV channel and some other stations. It's a tough category, though, the whole, because, you know, we're a global platform, and marijuana is not legal everywhere. So anything is possible. You just have to have, I guess, the timing has to be right, and we have to see some ROI from it.
Yes, you have a question?
Okay, so throwing it back to like the MCNs and picking up like creators' content, MCNs tend to only, even if they do pick you up, they tend to only distribute the content of the top 50 creators. that they have under their MCN. So even if they do pick you up, what is another way you could, as a content creator, go about distributing your content to places like these and like you guys? And like, how do you feel about content creators reaching out to you directly? And how do you think they should go about it?
Rob, do you want to start that one?
I think that's a great question. So, you know, I think at the end of the day,
You should know, actually, that's Nikki Baber, and she is already a star on you now. Go on.
A star. I love having
No.
stars in the audience.
I mean, I think the content creator, you know, the more that they can own the sales and marketing of their own product, the more they control their own destiny. So, in many cases, yes, it's helpful. It's helpful to, whether it be agents or MCNs or whomever, helping to accelerate your vision and your discovery of commercial success. Anything you can do, you know, outside of the box to work with all, you know, as many platforms as possible to, you know, make, you know, increase your brand recognition and increase your monetization footprint. Like those are all activities I would strongly encourage. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it just really comes down to who is your sales force? Is it you or is it your people? Can you all work simultaneously to, you know, maximize the end result?
There's one more question, then I want to cover a couple other things, and then so save your questions, don't forget. You had a question, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. A little bit answered. It was for content creators. If your content is on a subscription-based platform, but it's a non-exclusive deal, but you kind of just answered it. So you recommend reaching out to other platforms. And as a platform that acquires content, do you shy away from content that already has a non-exclusive deal somewhere else? Are you looking for that? Or are you only signing exclusively?
Almost everything we do is non-exclusive. I always tell people, cast a wide net, because you never know. Because people go, oh, I've seen that somewhere. Oh, I've seen it. It kind of builds your brand. Why not? Go everywhere. And go with any connections to answer your question. Like, no, just reach out to someone. You know, find someone on LinkedIn. That's how I found my job. I saw a press release that my CEO put out. I found him on LinkedIn. We met. And
Wow.
it turned into a job. It was an advertised job. And I'm a Howard Stern fan. I listen to his show all the time. And there was a great story. You know how Ed Sheeran, like probably number 1 or 2 or 3 on worldwide Spotify lists and whatever, he got his start because he met Jamie Foxx and slept on his couch. And Jamie saw something in him and got him to stand up and do his acoustic act. I mean, you want to just try and meet the right person, you know?
And also,
And here I thought LinkedIn was whoever died with the most connections wins.
There's
just
a
to answer
limit,
that
you know.
question, you know, if you're famous on one platform, that will make every other platform want you more, right?
Oh,
It's
good.
kind of like dating.
And,
Lower the brand of the platform that you're on, like if it's I don't know, like disloyal or something. So, but
everybody wants audience. So
Yeah.
that's really the upshot. And you know, you've got it. So now, great, you've got it. Step 1, you've got it somewhere. Don't forget that marketing plan. It's really vital, and you can build with influencers, and you can start to augment that audience that way. So don't forget that part, because that's the same as LinkedIn, right?
right.
Ask.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you really need to think about how to segment the market, whether it's pay or whether it's free. Can you do both? The freemium marketplace, and then you know really try to find venues that will hold your content special and align with your brand.
It's great. I want to switch subjects for just a moment. If there's more questions, we'll get back to the audience, I promise you. We see a plethora of devices. I don't know, I see everyone playing with tablets and iPhones and Androids and stuff. Does this make it a better echo environment for content providers, OTT, or more difficult, or it doesn't matter? Jim?
I know for us, well, it makes it more expensive. So you've got to develop more apps on more devices. That costs more money. But what we've also seen is that if you have a service and you're on the more apps you're on, the stickier the viewers and users are. So they're more likely to be engaged, more likely to watch more often. So for our customers we're building and launching apps for across devices, we recommend to be like she said, on the content side, cast a wide net. The more places you're available, the more likelihood you have of being viewed.
So, moving faster than we're moving now, which is make everyone's head spin, what are the next three things you think are important, or all of the above? Bandwidth, discovery, and I've flipped just for a second. I don't know why it's not quite working the way I wanted to, but we have all these voice controlled devices coming. Is that important? Better screens, 4K, HDR, or all of the above? Keith, you want to start us?
Oh, good. So I would say my personal opinion is the technology is going to happen. 4K, Ultra HD is going to happen. Bandwidth is, I think, going to improve. We'll see how the net neutrality stuff plays out. Technology is going to go that way. I actually think the biggest thing that we as an industry need to figure out is discovery. At least on this list, I think discovery is the biggest problem. Because again, when you've got this infinite amount of content, how do you actually put it in front of users in a way that makes sense to them? And I think all of us, I think, have this problem of you don't want to give this kind of one-size-fits-all to everybody, right? You want people to be able to kind of organize and personalize the content that they care about, and that's really hard to do. We kind of view ourselves as a user experience company, and we're slowly kind of getting into to be a content company as well. But the challenge of being able to not only develop a user experience, in a little window that has an infinite amount of content that you can kind of personalize, but then to do that really well across a lot of different platforms, OTT, mobile, HTML5 on smart TVs, that's a really, really hard problem. But I think it's, again, that's all going to take care of itself. It's really discovery is going to be the hardest thing.
Yeah, I asked a question of a panel yesterday that sort of has driven me crazy. They were talking about everybody wants that grid guide, got to have the grid guide. And so I said, well, I get that. I don't particularly like it, but why can't I just wipe out channels that I'm not interested in? Oh, well, I said, my cable providers never told me that, never told me how. I don't think I can. And then it dawned on me, and they sort of agreed sheepishly. Imagine if you could do that, what you'd wind up with is, why am I paying for the 90% of these channels I just threw out? So I don't think they want to make that easy for you. But I would agree with Keith. I think just as a user, discovery is really the hard part. And I think I hear it in your questions, is how do I get my content found?
Discovered. No.
And a grid guide isn't going to help you.
With a lot of the platforms, certainly through Roku and Amazon, that there's the universal search coming in and kind of taking on more kind of varied platforms. Is there also going to be universal suggestion, and is that something that you're pushing for, or are you trying to get people to just actively go to you and stay with you, or how is that changing?
What he means is, who's got a recommendation engine on their platforms, right?
Yeah.
Well, pretty much.
And I think so.
Everyone.
Part
Yeah.
of it,
No, because no one wants you to leave their platform, so there's no incentive to.
Right.
If I'm watching something on, we work with the UFC, so within the UFC app, it's going to recommend more UFC product. It's not going to tell you to go watch WWE.
My Amazon sends me all over the place, though.
Right.
Right.
It'll kick me off to Crackle and send me off to Netflix, and and if they don't suggest them, I may not know to go.
So I think there's a bunch of hard problems here, and I'll say, because I want to work nicely with these guys, I actually think they're doing a good job. I think they're doing a good job at a kind of starting point around universal search, but it's not really universal search, right? There's top 50 or so apps that actually can spend the money to actually write to their API. The problem for app makers like us is that they're all different. Roku's API for universal search is different than Apple TV, is different than Amazon, is different than all these others. That's a barrier to entry for the masses and a lot of content creators. So I think universal search is just starting. It doesn't exist right now, and I think it has to exist long term. I think that's the biggest problem. And then so that's one problem, and I'll only say two because I'll let other people talk too. I think the other big problem, and you kind of got you touched on it, is the bias inherent in these things, right? If people pay enough money and you're looking for a recommendation, I can say, oh, this is something you might like. bullshit, right? That's not something you might like. It's something somebody paid for and I got in front of you. And
Yeah.
so there's,
And
I
that
think, this
happens
problem
now.
of trusted recommendations and a real universal search and real universal guides. It has to exist. It will exist. Like, I think user experience and the user, the industry is going to push for that, but it does not exist right now.
That's coming in the data mining and the metadata.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it does.
And that's why we created it, was because there has to be a way to understand what the audience wants, not what your CRM is pushing or what, you need to know.
I think
And there's
we're
enough
gonna-
data now so that you will know.
If consumers demand it enough, it will happen, because the
Yeah.
consumer is driving the bus, really.
But what I
And-
fear is it may not happen until we can get our own personal Watson.
Well, but at the
put-
end of the day, revealing to me, my husband comes in and says, we should watch the show. I don't remember the name of it. I'm like, yeah, why? Oh, it's getting a lot of buzz on Twitter. I'm like, okay, that's how we now introduce, it's social media that's really driving how and when and what a lot of people are consuming.
On one of Tuesday's panels, they literally asked the question, like, who was, one stream, two stream, how many subscriptions had you? And, but also, where do you get your suggestions? Are you just relying on a Netflix feed? But, or are you on, can I stream it, just Google?
Right.
Just watch all these. Is there a metadata that we can plug into that is suggesting reading our, in the way that, they can follow what ads we're clicking on, they can follow what we're searching? Is there anything for content, or is there anyone building anything for content that would watch our entire online?
Well, there's
That's
an app
what
called
we do.
Fan.
That
There's
is what we do.
IMDb is trying it, and IMDb is owned by Amazon, right? So they're trying to do it, because if you look up movie star X, and then it'll recommend his movies or her movies, and then other things like that. So they're trying it. So people are trying it. Fan is really cool because it goes across everything. But it's the only one that I know of, unless you
Randa,
guys
your
do that
experience
too.
was interesting. I don't know if you read the study I sent you. Probably nobody read the study. It says that people trust their partner's recommendation only 20% of the time, and outsiders 40% of the time.
Right.
And
Their friends,
Randa
yeah.
just proved it. I don't know it, but Twitter says it's okay. It must be good.
It must be good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm kind of late, so I apologize. And I love OTT. Like, I literally have Roku in one room and Apple TV in another, and my husband and my son are just so pissed off because all I do is watch, go from one binge to the next. Here's the question. I also sell and love advertising, and I'm all about monetizing that experience. So I'm constantly saying, when is someone going to figure out how to monetize, not only, like, for someone like me, right? I'm spending so much time in my living room and with my husband, co-viewing, if you will, across all these different things. There's got to be an opportunity for brands to get in there and monetize. And I was just wondering if you guys, I just,
Yeah, branded content. Branded
right?
content, yeah.
So how, like, if I was, how would that look like across, in your opinion? And what type of companies are able to offer that to a brand? Like, if I was a craft, and I said, wow, I just know tons of women my age are, doing this. How do I get their attention across?
Well, the agencies are doing a lot of the
what are they
branded.
doing? I'm saying, what are
But-
the ad products like? What is the opportunity?
They will usually find an influencer that reaches a certain audience, because there were a couple panels here. One that I sat through yesterday, they were talking about it, and it was all about branded content, and it was just agencies that are marrying an audience with an influencer, whether it's a YouTuber or a TV star, and they would create maybe a web series that would talk about something, or maybe it's a blog, or so it's going on now, but it's a lot of being driven at the agency level, because usually a lot of money involved.
Isn't there another opportunity here, though? Yeah, one-to-one marketing, because it's you're relating one-to-one in a sense. OTT, right? Is that an opportunity to show you only things you want to see, commercials you're interested in?
Exactly, that's you hit the nail on the head. I'm talking about, instead of
I know that's been a
creating-
golden chalice, and
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
we've done, there's lots of data, we've done lots of work in this area, and what I'm gonna say is going to be anathema to some people. I don't think it works. I don't. And if you think about retargeting, which I'm sure everyone in this room has been retargeted, and it's super annoying. You go to Nordstrom, you look at something, you bought it, you left, you've been, the next month you're seeing the ads over and over again. That's personalized marketing. Yay. No. Or I went to look up something, a gift for my mother, and trust me, I don't need to be retargeted on this. Well, this is where you were. This is where you went. Intent is very difficult to discern. Why somebody's looking at something. At the end of the day, we believe as a company, and I believe as a person, we call that helicopter marketing. It's right, following right behind you, and, oh, you're going to love this. Well, you might not. And generally, the horse is left. If you've gone online and you've looked up 3 insurance companies, you made a decision, you've moved on. To send you for months, what is this? So,
I go both ways. I'm just, playing devil's advocate. I
'Kay.
actually was that person. I was looking for insurance, seriously looking for insurance. I made one phone call, and then I was like, I went on, I moved on, and just yesterday, I haven't found my insurance, and I got a million phone calls. I actually called.
okay, I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
it's
What I
question,
am
yeah.
saying is, if you look at all the MarTech and AdTech, 3,500 companies coming in and talking about selling personalization and one-to-one marketing, this is going to be awesome. What has happened is the cost of advertising is soaring. Every year, the cost of customer acquisition continues to soar. They're making the same amount of money. They're not, and it's costing more. Each dollar costs more. If it used to cost 18 cents, it now costs 28 cents to earn that dollar. Wow. The complexity itself, the enormity of the data, it's not solving the problem. What we try to do, what we look at when we look at data, is we look at segments and look at this kind of person, these influencers over here. It's looking at lookalikes, not people who are about to do something, because you need to influence people on an advertising basis before they make a decision, not at the moment of decision.
And that's why branded entertainment is so useful,
Yes.
because the consumer leans forward into that, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm completely open to both because I actually sell branded entertainment. I'm a consumer. I'm very much involved in retargeting everything. I think it all kind of plays its place personally. But I guess my real question was specifically to OTT.
It doesn't exist today.
Yeah.
Can you target with data, whether or not it costs 28 cents or 18 cents? What are the advancements that are taking place in OTT, targeting and advertising?
Yeah.
Because, Hulu's selling it right now.
Right.
It's
it,
work at Yahoo. I sold it too, but the trackability at that
Mhm.
time was very, archaic. Very little stuff that could go into it. So what do you guys see, in the near future, happening in that space?
there will be more and more emphasis on it. What we're looking at is, for example, you go into a television break. We know one particular ad will hold the audience through the break longer if you put it in the first position. So we know exactly now what plays and what doesn't with what segment. And you will see more of that. But that is not personalized marketing. It is looking at the segment and understanding the audience, because every show has a different audience. So that's what the data will inform. And I think that will continue. That's good work. That makes sense. And that will begin to hold audience through breaks, and it will begin to inform pricing, and it will be more effective.
I wanted to move on to a couple of tech things. To keep your question, we'll have more time, because I'm a techie. I worked at Apple for 10 years, so I love technology. And I hate to go right back to you, Randa, but what about ATSC 3.0? You hear a lot of buzz about it, and it's launching, if it hasn't already. Does this mean anything for content distribution of the type we're talking about, OTT type content? Or is it just something else?
No, I think there'll be more opportunity.
Tell people what it is
Oh,
first.
Okay, what it is it's the next iteration of television, if you will. It will require a new television set. Sorry to say. I know.
And
But
I'll behave, I promise.
But here's what it is. Its dream of doing is it's leveling the playing field as far as viewers go. So think of the Xfinity One platform, that kind of experience coming to broadcast television, and it allows television to simultaneously from the same feed, layer different layers. It handles 3 different kinds of video, but it will enable mobile and it will enable talkback, right? So it's going to allow for them to gather data, not just through, let's say, a smart TV or through the Comcast box. It will allow broadcasters to bring in that data themselves and then sell targeting advertising. But it should be, the dream is to make it a much better user experience and similar to what you get with a Filmon or what you get with a MVPD. So that's the dream. The practicality, I don't know yet, but they can layer up to, I believe, 6 different channels roughly. It depends on the size of the video, whether it's SD or Ultra HD, or et cetera. So what was the question inside of that?
Is this an opportunity for distribution of
Yes.
OTT type material?
Yes, because there'll be more channels, there'll be more room for content and need for content.
But it'll still be linear.
Well, technically, yes, it will still be linear.
I mean, you won't be able, would you be able to call up content or?
Well, if it's built appropriately, yes, it has a DVR function, right? The opportunity for the DVR function is going to be there. That's what I mean by it's going to be similar to an Xfinity kind of experience, an X1. So technically, that is on the drawing board. Now, how this comes to fruition, I don't know. But I do think there will be more and more content required, and that's more opportunity, but it still goes back to discoverability. Discovery.
One more piece of technology, and then hopefully you have lots
Jim,
more
I've got
questions. Oh, sure,
one
go ahead,
thing.
Jim. No, go.
I know we as a company are bullish on 3.0 just because we see it enabling not only 4K, but, 8K is coming, right? I mean, it's 16K after that. So virtual reality, augmented reality, all the different high-level resolutions that are going to come through, it's going to enable that. So you're going to see a real explosion in.
Well, hopefully HDR too.
Yeah.
That, well, don't get me started on television. It's a long story. But let me talk about, or let you guys talk about one more technology, 5G. I mean, I read all this stuff about how 5G is going to be better than sliced bread, that you have a desktop experience walking around. What do you?
It is going to be great, but it's a couple of years away. But I mean, I've been reading up on this because I've been hearing so much about it, especially at the World Mobile Congress, and it's going to be 100 times faster, your internet speed. So it's going to be a significant, really, I think, when the internet first came about. I mean, it's really going to change everything. And hopefully there'll be some real positive things that come out of it. I read this really interesting thing. The World Bank calculates that a 10% increase in your high-speed internet adds to a global GDP increase of 1.3%, which doesn't sound much, but when you consider there are 7.4 billion people on the planet and only 40% are currently connected to the internet, that means, you could get $1 trillion more by adding 327 million people to the internet. And maybe it connects more people, and you would argue, well, some of those people are, starving and they're poor or whatever, but this may be like a real hope to help them be connected through the internet and mobile.
And the other piece, hopefully, is competition for the current cable carriers.
I think it's going to allow this 4K, 8K, everything to be utilized, drones, driverless cars, smart devices. I mean, it's going to make a lot of changes.
Great. Any other comments on the technology?
I'll say for us, because we do a lot of live sports, it's big because of latency. Right now, the latency is a half a millisecond or worse, depending upon the speed of your bandwidth. But it's going to be virtually live. It'll be down to almost 1 millisecond. Where now you're watching a live event, you might see something on social media that gives away that somebody just scored or something just happened, and that's going to go away entirely.
Great. Yes.
Just on 8K, 4K, do we really need to increase, how much, our servers are already, hot with it?
I mean, but did we need HD? I mean, there are people who said that, and now you couldn't imagine living without it. So
I'll be a skeptic on this and say when you get TVs the size of that whiteboard, you'll want 8K, but for a 50-inch. You don't want it now. Well, I'm like I say, I'm a skeptic. I'm happy with 720p.
I think once you experience it, you look at it and you think, this is so amazing. And
Well-
how could I have lived without it? I mean, it's really stunning.
But what's really going to make a difference for artists, I think, is not more bits, but better bits, i.e. the color space. In today's HD, the color space is actually much limited. If you ever watch a sunset, you'll see it's banded because it can't reproduce all those fine colors. HDR is going to increase that color space tremendously, and you look at that, will blow you away. If you've ever seen some of the better HDRs like Dolby's, it's just amazing. It looks really live. So that, I'm rooting for HDR, and I'm waiting till they decide on which standard they're going to use to go buy a set. I'm not interested in the 4K. A lot of people are, and I don't mean to diss them, but stand by for HDR. You're going to like that if you have any artistic taste. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, I know most platforms are working to increase the quantity and quality of their content to get as many viewers on the platform for as much time as possible. And aside from, let's say, Google working on self-driving cars, have you seen any efforts from either your companies or larger companies attacking it from the other end in terms of how to increase leisure time for the consumers so that they'll have more time to watch this content?
Well, if you fix discovery and people aren't spending 15 minutes trying to figure out something to watch, that helps.
And
Maybe
robot
a trite
butlers.
answer, but I think it's true. Right?
And robot butlers.
Yeah. And those.
Yeah.
Pluto TV by design is a lean-back experience. It's a curated experience that's supposed to bring you the best of everything, so you can just literally sit on your couch and make television what it's supposed to be in this digital world.
Yes.
So as far as discovery goes, if, let's say, Pluto and Zumo and a bunch of other places that you go to see a bunch of stations on, all had metadata on every single thing they had, that was consolidated to something like you said, fan, wouldn't they all be able to search through everybody's content and bring people to your site as if it were a Google? So the other side of that would be, if you actually had channels within your stations that were free and open, almost like community TV channels are or were, and those channels also had all of their, were metadated so that everything could be Googled or fanned, so that people could find whatever they wanted all over the stratosphere, the entire space. Wouldn't it bring new people to you at the same time, giving discovery to everybody for all types of content?
Yeah, that would be great. I think that the challenge is you've got each of these companies kind of doing it separately. There isn't a standardization, so you can have all the metadata. In content, it's a little, it's hard because there's new metadata being created all the time, new content being created all the time, and so A, how does someone keep up with that, and then B, how do you make sure if you really want to have this universal guide you were talking about, how do you make sure that everybody can cooperate with that? So I think a company like Fan. Is, they're essentially just kind of sitting on top and trying to be a universal guide for everything. There's other little companies trying to do the same thing. So somebody will succeed there, because I think it has to happen, but we're a ways away from it.
Yeah, I think what you just described is called the internet.
Nirvana.
Yeah.
It's the internet
For content, right.
Should we wrap it up, Jim?
No, we've got 5 more minutes.
Oh, great.
Are you tired of this? This is a great audience we have. It's the first time I've had a panelist be tired of the audience.
He just mic drops and walks away. That was good.
On that as well, from a deliverables perspective, with so much differentiation between the platforms, is there a vast differentiation then also in the deliverables, and is there a requirement on metadata for deliverables, or is that post-element that comes later, or how is that?
I think
affecting us going
everybody's a little bit different, but there's a lot of things that are the same. Like if you're going to do live streaming, we could do RTMP or MRSS feeds or HLS streams or whatever. When it comes to metadata, we usually want a couple sentences here and a couple keywords here. So there's may want different size logos. All these things make it discoverable, and I don't know how mine differs from Pluto, but I'm sure there's a lot of common ground. And we carry channels that also have Grace Note or TMS IDs, and those should be theoretically identical, whether it's on my platform or Comcast or DirecTV.
Yes.
Is there ever gonna be a utopian world where we can eliminate advertising altogether and just watch what we wanna watch?
If you want to pay for it, you can create your own utopia like that.
Yeah, I think it would be, we sort of, you know, you think about the cable channels and all the money you pay for them, they still have a lot of advertising on it. And you're paying a lot for cable, at least I believe they am.
But I think it's expensive to pay for very good writers and very good producers and talent. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm okay with that because these are the people that entertain me and my family and my friends, and I'm happy to support them. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure.
Yes.
I'm coming out of a traditional film background, and I'm wondering with these OTT channels or networks, how geo-blocking works, and in terms of traditional windowing, if you're familiar with that for films and content, or where you see it going for yours.
Well, I think you've seen that a lot of the windowing has gone away, and you see it even on the pay-per-view. When I was doing pay-per-view in the past, it was very strict. You'd be theatrical, 3 to 6 months. It goes to the DVD window, and then it would go to pay-per-view, and then it goes to HBO Showtime, then it goes to cable, then it goes to broadcast, and on down the line. But then all of a sudden you started seeing things that were day and date, and then sometimes even DirecTV will get things before another carrier, or Redbox will go, we've got it before Netflix, or Netflix will, well, we're getting before HBO. So there's still windows out there. There is a pecking order. And, I mean, if you read the news about the big kerfuffle at Cannes with Netflix and how they were booed because they didn't want to have theatrical release. And that's a requirement, I guess, to be in the Cannes Film Festival now. You have to have some theatrical release. But I think in the OTT or indie space, I think anything goes potentially. You could go straight to a Netflix or to a Cinema Now or a pay-per-view outlet before, and never going to the theater.
The problem, this relates to an earlier question, the problem with Windows is if you believe that, I hate the word piracy, but I've given up on that battle. It's called infringement. But if you believe piracy is a problem and hurting you, windowing increases it, because what went on in Australia with Netflix, they just got around geo-blocking either by downloading from illegal sites or by getting a VPN into another country, and then the government was going to shut down those VPN. It gets very messy because you're trying to control behavior that is not, in a natural sense, controllable in the digital world. It was in the analog world. It was pretty easy to control Windows.
But do you geo-block? I guess.
Yes.
You do geo-block. Sorry, Rob.
I mean, we're doing a lot of sports and a lot of film, and we geo-block down to zip code globally.
Wow. Yeah, well, I could get it with sports, with live sports.
But it's the same theatrically. And I think that on the windowing side, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Some films will have different windows than others, depending upon how the studios see that they can monetize it
Right.
best.
No, it does come down to dollars at the end of the day.
Disney has a different approach than others. That's
We have
what
just
they're
time for one more question, if there is. Yes, sir.
Lightning round question for each of you. Who's your biggest competitor?
Ours is internal build.
Kim, can you answer that question?
Let's see. I want something that's kind of a cool answer. Ourselves. No, but not irony aside. I think it is ourselves, because I think we have branched out so fast in so many areas that I think we need to rein it in and kind of decide who we want to be when we grow up. But that's the fun of a startup. So do I see anything as competitors? Yeah, I mean, there are other people who are doing free and ad-supported global agnostic platforms like ourselves, but I don't really see them as competitor more than our own business plan,
Well, Jim, you said you had competitors for your
Sure,
platform.
I certainly won't name them.
Don't
but
name
there's-
them, no, it's
On the
okay.
technology side, look, there's big ones and small ones, and, it just comes down to level of quality and service and budget. People can only afford so much, so you sort of have to determine what your requirements are and what your goals are and who fits those the best.
Frank?
Well, for when I'm launching the virtualfilmschool.org, I don't know of any competitors of it yet, but I'm sure that there will be. My mission is to empower creators. I was a creator. I still like creating, but I have so much more fun empowering other creators. So I'm going to try and gather a global audience or global students for that. In fact, I'm teaching a class at the university this summer that I can offer to you guys for no tuition. So if you want. It's about content creation. It's about web video content creation. So if you want to do that for no tuition, come see me or grab one of the flyers. And I just want to hear about the competitors of the virtual film school because for me, what is it? Collaboration is the new competition.
Yeah. Keith?
Yeah, and I'll even use a more glib word, which is we kind of think of it as co-opetition. That sounds a little bit of a...
That's a trademark.
Right.
That's trademarked.
Is it? Darn it. I don't get the trademark.
I'll tell you later.
But it really is like in our, I think this is happening a lot in OTT, and I'm sure to some degree they're dealing with it as well, but any site that's kind of aggregating content, you have this issue where you're trying to convince your content partners to give you more content to put into an experience that is that is complete for the user, but at the same time, we're all to some degree competing for eyeballs, right? So if someone puts their content or some of their content into your system, they still want to get people to their site. So one of the things that we've been, really talking a lot with the content providers about is how do we do both, right? Get content into our platform, but then help our users engage with your content better and actually not try and lock them in. Is there a world where we can not try and always exert leverage on each other, but actually kind of play nice? I don't know, but that's our utopian view. Right?
You've got wrap up, Rob.
Yeah, I think our biggest competitor is life. Last time I checked, people were viewing about 5 hours a day. That leaves a lot of room for more viewing. But, and also discovery.
Great. Well, listen, I want to thank a terrific audience and a great panel.